gonna look like Benavidez. You.
Yeah, one leg.
You gonna look like
Yeah,
him with one leg.
Yeah, one leg.
I'm gonna make
one
you
leg.
stanky leg. What's my bet on?
No, but yeah, it's definitely my call. The ball's in my court. What they say, I'm the A side now.
Errol gave me an opportunity and a shot at becoming the first male boxer, undisputed, in any division in a 4-belt era, and I honor, that.
Forget the pound-for-pound rankings. Forget the belts. When it comes to real boxing heat, the kind that pulls fans from every corner of the sport and casuals from outside of it, Crawford versus Spence rematch is the fight that still needs to happen. And yes, even more than Crawford versus Canelo.
What the latest is, we signed and contracted to do a rematch, and that's what it is right now.
Do you know when it's going to be, when we can hear?
I don't got no date right now, but I know that's the next fight that Terence Crawford.
The first Crawford-Spence fight was a beatdown. No spin, no excuses. Crawford handed Errol Spence Jr. the worst night of his career, dropping him 3 times before stopping him in the 9th. It was clean, it was brutal, it was historic. But in boxing, a beating doesn't always mean the story is over. Sometimes it just makes the sequel bigger. And that's what we got from the recent face-to-face between the two. Now with both men potentially fighting at 154, and Spence looking to redeem himself from what he calls an off night, the narrative writes itself.
Has he exercised his immediate rematch clause?
I don't know if it's gonna be at 54 or 47, but I'm sure he's probably gonna push the weight up. But there's gonna be no change in the decision. The performance still is gonna be the same. It might be even a little bit better. So he might want to watch out before he activates the rematch clause.
And here's the best part. This rematch could outdraw Crawford versus Canelo in every way that matters. Post-fight excuses are nothing new in boxing, but Spence has been calculated and honest in admitting something was wrong. Leading up to the Crawford fight, he hadn't been in the ring for over a year. He was boiling his body down to 147 for what may have been the final time. In fact, he'd been vocal about the cut even before the fight, saying he was draining too much and needed to move up. Even veteran fighters like Sean Porter and analysts like Tim Bradley suggested Spence's body looked off, stiff, sluggish, flat-footed, not the relentless volume puncher we've seen walk guys down for years.
He looks sluggish.
Why?
I can't tell you. I wasn't in camp
at the division he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him. I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down from being at 147 for too long. I don't know if it was him flying from Dallas to Las Vegas, which has different heat and temperatures, and losing weight affects your body.
I just want y'all to realize that Errol Spence is the younger fighter between him and Terence Crawford. He's the bigger fighter between him and Terence Crawford.
Now things will be different. Spence versus Crawford at 154, both fully rehydrated, no excuses, no advantage. We might actually see the fight we thought we were getting the first time. Let's call it what it is, a Crawford versus. Canelo fight looks interesting on paper. P4P star versus P4P king. But dig beneath the surface and you realize this is a sideshow, not a war. Canelo fights at 168. Crawford has never fought above 147, excluding a move to 154 recently. That's a 21-pound leap across weight classes. And while Terence is a phenom, Canelo is a tank with power that hurts at that weight. Crawford's technical brilliance might make it a chess match, but the power gap is so wide, it may only take one misstep to end the night.
It's up to him. He gave me that opportunity to fight him. It's only right that if that's what he want to do, I'll give it back to him. Outside of him, I was definitely...
Bob Arum said it best. Canelo's just too big and too strong. And he was promoting Crawford for over a decade. Plus, the stakes aren't organic. There's no grudge, no bad blood. The hype would rely on manufactured tension and media spin. With Spence, the tension is real, the stakes are personal, and the fan investment is already baked in. Let's talk business. The first Crawford-Spence PPV did around 700K buys. An impressive number considering the event had no crossover megastar like Floyd or Canelo. That's pure boxing interest. Spence has a redemption arc. Crawford has a new belt at 154. Both are healthier, bigger, and better promoted. The first fight left unfinished emotional business.
He needed to fix to make the fight look different in the second time than in the first time. I do believe that, but that's the only thing that I can actually sense because, I will be on the other side.
This thing has all the makings of a 1 million plus PPV fight, especially if they fight in Vegas again or bring it to a Terence Stadium in Texas where Spence's fan base rolls deep. That's more than what most recent Canelo fights have been doing, especially outside of his trilogy with Triple G. Let's not forget, Canelo versus Jermell Charlo underperformed, barely cracking 600 KA despite massive Showtime hype. Crawford Spence has way more emotional weight behind it. Another wrinkle, Terence Crawford is no longer the quiet, stay-in-his-lane technician. Since the Spence fight, we've seen a different Bud. He's talking more, he's cracking jokes, he's calling out names, he knows his worth now, and the fans are finally listening.
Crawford, but look who he beat. Undisputed. Look who he beat. Look who he beat. What he did to Spence, and how he did it. That's 3 fights to me. And it took 4 fights out of Spence, right? I'm a fighter, so I can tell you when you get punished like that.
Yeah, I was there ringside watching the fight.
It takes a few years out of you. Don't see the years right now, but it sort of takes something out of that person.
He told the media in early 2024 that Canelo wasn't the priority. He even hinted that Spence II at 154 was more meaningful. If we do it again, I want to make sure we're both healthy, both at our best. That way no one can say anything after. That's not a guy looking for a payday. That's a guy chasing legacy. Don't sleep on the controversy either. Since the loss, Spence has had to deal with fans claiming he's washed, that the car crash changed him, that the eye surgeries ruined his timing.
Which rematch?
He don't deserve no rematch. He got whooped.
Which rematch?
Crawford and Spence.
Oh, yeah. The Spence fans. Spence fans, they hold it out. They believe, they man could get it back.
Yeah, well, that's what makes a fan. So they can hope all they want. I don't want to see it.
He's heard it all, and he wants to shut everyone up. Crawford, he's been accused of beating a diminished version of Spence. Some even say the fight shouldn't have counted as a true showdown because Errol wasn't at full strength. What's the solution? Run it back at 154 with no excuses. That controversy sells. The internet debates, the breakdowns, the hate, it's all fuel. That's what brings people in. That's what Crawford versus Spence II delivers in spades.
If Crawford want to challenge himself to be great, let him try to be great, so, I'm with it. So, I'll be going for Bud, if he fight Canelo, I'll be going for him. I don't know if he gonna win or lose, but I definitely be going Crawford. I think
Errol Spence Jr. remains one of the most talked about names in boxing. Not because of what he's done lately, but because of what still might be left in him, or what might not. While Terence Crawford continues to chase greatness with a possible jump to 168 to face Canelo Alvarez, Spence's path looks murkier, caught somewhere between redemption and uncertainty. The Crawford rematch may be the purest choice, but boxing, like always, isn't just about legacy, it's about business. And right now, Oscar De La Hoya wants in on that business, proposing a mega fight between Spence and Virgil Ortiz Jr. in Dallas, something that could flip Spence's narrative entirely or bury it.
Hoya says he wants to make Virgil Ortiz versus Errol Spence Jr. in AT&T Stadium. And I want to chime in and talk about it. I think it's kind of irrelevant for Oscar to be calling out Errol.
The idea isn't just promotional fluff. De La Hoya told Fight Hype he's already eyeing AT&T Stadium, a Texas-sized venue for a Texas-sized fight between 2 Texas-born warriors. And sure, if you're talking gate and buzz, that fight could easily draw 60,000 fans. Spence is still beloved in Dallas. Ortiz, meanwhile, is that young, undefeated knockout artist just hitting his peak.
What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, and it is my pleasure to talk to boxing icon, the face of Golden Boy Promotions, multiple-time world champion, Oscar De La Hoya. How you doing today, Oscar?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir, man. It is a pleasure to talk to you. One of the first things that I want to ask you is talk about Virgil Ortiz Jr.'s performance. I'm gonna be honest. with you, Oscar. I expected him to have trouble.
It sells itself, But let's be real, it's also a dangerous, high-risk fight for Spence to return to after a 2-year layoff and a humbling loss that shook his entire aura. Crawford didn't just beat him, he erased him. And that's not hyperbole. He made Spence look like he didn't belong in the same ring, and that kind of beating leaves scars, mental, physical, and reputational.
I mean, I'll fight anybody. I don't care if it's Boots, I don't care if it's Thurman, I don't care if it's Spence or anybody. Crawford, I really don't care. I would love to fight someone like him. He's a fighter. I don't think of him, you know, he's just, if he fights him, he fights us, whatever.
Virgil Ortiz Jr. isn't just another top prospect, he's a wrecking ball. At 23, 0 with 21 knockouts, he's been tearing through competition and finally got his big-name scalp with a win over Israel Madrimov. Yes, the same Madrimov who went 12 hard rounds with Crawford at 154 in a fight. Many, including Canelo Alvarez and Eddie Hearn, thought Bud may have lost. That's where things get messy. If you believe Crawford struggled with Madrimov and Ortiz handled that same fighter with less resistance, then logically, Ortiz is a bigger problem for Spence than some want to admit. De La Hoya probably knows it too. He's not just matchmaking, he's circling the wounded. And Errol Spence, whether he likes it or not, is looking like prey right now.
I'm trying to fight the best, but I mean, you see that it's not up to, it's not under my control. Like if it was under my control, I would have fought the world champions already at 140. I would have fought him at 147. You know,
Fans might not be clamoring for Spence Ortiz yet, but that could change fast. Once Canelo fights Skull, and if Crawford doesn't get that bout lined up in time, the Spence Ortiz ticket might be the one that gets printed. The risk for Spence is monumental. Ortiz has never been in with someone of Spence's resume, but he's young, hungry, and fresh. He throws with bad intentions, and he's not coming off a 9-round beatdown. Spence, by contrast, hasn't been in a ring since 2023. His last image in front of fans was of him getting dropped, bleeding, and broken.
Showdown between Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Errol Spence in Dallas Stadium is generating buzz. Spence hasn't fought since his loss to Crawford, leaving questions about his comeback. Ortiz is in his prime and hungry for bigger challenges. Is this a fair fight or a setup for a comeback story or beatdown?
The stakes here aren't just wins and losses, they're legacy. If Spence returns and beats Ortiz, his stock goes through the roof. Redemption arc complete. The Crawford rematch becomes bigger. But if he loses, especially badly, then it's over. No rematch. No big comeback. No soft landing. Just another cautionary tale in a sport full of them. There's a reason why De La Hoya wants to make this fight now. It's not just timing, it's opportunity. Catch Spence before he's either retooled or retired. Get Ortiz the big name. Get the Texas money. Sell out a Tant Stadium and let the headlines write themselves.
You're young enough, you could come back from it. I just don't know that Spence was young enough to take that kind of beating at this point. You know, that's where you have the question mark. I think if Spence was, 25 years old, for argument's sake, that hungry determination can bring you back. But 33, you're rich. You've made him a lot of money already too. And you're rich. It's a bit tougher, I think, to come back from that.
Meanwhile, across the spectrum, Crawford is catching heat from none other than Canelo himself, who says Crawford doesn't even deserve his undefeated record. In Canelo's eyes, Crawford lost to Madrimov, or at best it was a draw. Crawford edged Madrimov on the cards, but the performance wasn't dominant. It was awkward, tactical, and lacked the snap we saw in the Spence fight. He won, sure, but he didn't send a message. That's fuel for Canelo, who's making it clear that he doesn't view Crawford as invincible. And let's not forget Eddie Hearn jumped in on that too, saying Bud didn't do enough to take the belt.
No, he landed a couple of times at the end of the round where he was trying to steal the round. But I just was trying to counter him, but at the same time, he had a good game plan. He had a lot of feints, and I was just trying to dictate when he was going to come, and a lot of times I was wrong. I was touching him up with the jab. I think my jab was beating him up all through the fight, but, he landed a couple of right hands.
The irony is thick. Crawford batters Spence, gets critiqued for a tough win at 154, and now faces criticism for taking a leap to 168, a jump many say is too big. At the same time, Spence gets clowned for being damaged goods, and yet could walk into a sellout stadium fight against a killer like Ortiz.
I wanted to see that immediately after that fight, but now time has kind of ran its course. I just don't want to see Errol like that. That's all. Yeah, I believe Errol Spence is a generational talent, great fighter. What happened to him against Bud, I don't want to see that.
You don't think he'll put up a better fight this time, man, the second time around?
I don't even believe if they move up in weight.
Crawford isn't just a master technician in the ring, he's also proving to be a master of narrative outside of it. And his latest comments, delivered in a relaxed setting with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo on the Pound for Pound podcast, have sparked a wildfire across the boxing world. When asked about Errol Spence Jr., his former foe and the man he dismantled in July 2023, Crawford didn't hold back. Not only did he assert that Spence isn't Hall of Fame worthy, but he also subtly dragged Spence's resume through the mud, highlighting what he sees as shallow accomplishments and an unimpressive welterweight reign. "I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame." He couldn't, Crawford said bluntly.
Be in the Hall of Fame.
Right now? No, how? He fought in one division. He had a WBC, WBA.
He wasn't undisputed. He
no,
wasn't undisputed.
He wasn't. No, what I'm saying is they already called him a weight bully. He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. He beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
You know what I mean? That's a good win. I'm still a fan. I hope he do well. But like, once it got to the point where I moved up in weight and I'm in the same weight as Spence, it's just like, oh man, you ain't fighting nobody. You this, you that, you this, you that. So now they trying to blemish my accomplishment.
He pointed out that Spence had only ever fought in one division, never unified all the belts, and crucially, never became undisputed. They already called him a weight bully, right? He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss and an eye injury. You know, he beat Sean Porter, Crawford added, dismissing Spence's signature wins as underwhelming. To be fair, the numbers back Crawford.
Right now? No, how? He fought in one division. They already called him a weight bully. He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. He beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
Like I said, you know what I mean? That's a good win.
He's a 3-division world champion. He's been undisputed at 140, and then he went on to become the first male boxer in the 4-belt era to become undisputed in 2 weight classes. By contrast, Spence unified 3 titles at welterweight, but never crossed into new divisions or chased undisputed until Crawford forced that conversation. Still, is Crawford being brutally honest or strategically petty?
See why he is who he is. You know?
For sure. Rematch?
I like the rematch. I want to know how healthy Errol is, and but I think that a lot of fighters aren't able to make adjustments in real time. They're able to go back to the gym and right a lot of wrongs and come back better.
Let's not forget, the Spence-Crawford fight was a financial juggernaut. With 700K PPV buys and over 59 million generated, plus an extra 20 million in ticket sales, this was not just another title unification, it was a mega event. And that kind of money leaves talks. Crawford and Spence both walked away with 25 million each. That's generational wealth, but also for fighters, an addiction. Because where there's smoke and this much money, there's usually a rematch clause glowing in the embers. And here's where the controversy kicks in. Crawford is smart, too smart to just be throwing out Hall of Fame disses for no reason. This might be less about his genuine opinion on Spence's legacy and more about stirring the pot, fanning flames, laying the groundwork for a sequel.
Just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that. Because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't wanna sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now.
Because let's be real, Spence has been MIA since the beating. Some call it a humbling, others call it a total breakdown. Rumors swirled of lingering physical issues, particularly concerning his vision and balance. He looked flat, slow, and reactive against Bud. Far from the relentless body puncher who broke down opponents like Kell Brook and Danny Garcia, that night in Vegas, Spence got outclassed in every category. Still, he's not the type to go out like that. And everyone knows it.
Question was about Terence Crawford and his comments.
Yeah.
About Errol Spence.
Yeah, about the Hall of Fame comment.
Well, that's. I mean, look, that's his opinion.
Yeah,
that's how he feels, and that's.
What do you think?
No, I think the opposite. I think the opposite.
Okay.
I've came out and I've said
I don't
that.
want to fall.
I came out and I've said that Errol Spence is a Hall of Famer. Okay. In my eyes. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter one division, whatever. 6 years he was reigning, right? Never ducked the big smoke. Finally got in the ring with Crawford. Crawford did what he did.
Crawford's comments feel less like closure and more like bait. There's unfinished business. Even if the first fight was one-sided, a rematch still makes money. And if Spence wants redemption, or even just a huge payday to ride off into the sunset, there's only one name on the table. Crawford might be playing chess, not checkers. Because what better way to generate buzz than to question Spence's entire legacy? Let's play devil's advocate for a second. Imagine you're Spence. You've had a nearly flawless run before the Crawford fight. Unified belts, headlined PPVs, and built your name fighting legitimate names in the division. Now Crawford, fresh off chasing a fight with Canelo Alvarez, starts downplaying your entire career. The pride, the ego, it doesn't sit well. That alone could push Spence to demand the rematch, whether he's truly ready or not.
I don't think Errol's run was long enough, no Diddy, to automatically put him in the Hall of Fame. He was a very good fighter. If there was a Hall of Very Good, he would be going into that. But Hall of Fame, no. If you were in charge of writing a Hall of Fame speech for Errol Spence, and I was in charge of writing a Hall of Fame speech for Bud Crawford, my Hall of Fame speech, listing my credentials, listing my accolades for Bud Crawford, would sound a lot better than your speech for Errol Spence.
And that's exactly what Crawford might want. Here's the cynical take. Crawford knows his path to becoming an all-time great is already etched in history. But to become legendary, we're talking mainstream, crossover, iconic status. He needs another tentpole moment. Beating Spence again, especially if Spence is more ready this time, could add that exclamation point. And doing it while talking trash the entire way there, that's how stars are made. That's how you become Ali-esque. There's also the possibility that Bud is trying to ensure he keeps the narrative control. If Spence comes back and builds a couple wins, the media might start spinning redemption stories or even questioning whether Spence was weight drained or just had an off night. Crawford, in this interview, is cutting that off at the knees. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's a one-division guy.
Terence went on Pound for Pound podcast and he said that Errol Spence will not be a Hall of Famer. Can you just give me your thoughts on that?
I disagree.
You disagree? Why do you disagree?
I feel as though Errol had a great career. If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. So he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
He beat damaged goods. Bud is anchoring his version of the truth before anyone else can twist it. Of course, the Hall of Fame argument will always be subjective. Spence's resume, while lacking the same multi-division sparkle, is solid. Wins over Mikey Garcia, Porter, Brook, and Ugas are nothing to scoff at. And had Crawford never existed in his orbit, Spence might have ended up being the undisputed king himself. But history doesn't care about could-have-beens. Legacy is written in ink, not imagination. The irony? If Crawford truly believes Spence wasn't worthy of the Hall of Fame, you'd think he wouldn't keep bringing him up. But he does, because he knows the world's still watching. And just maybe, deep down, he wants to beat Spence again. Not for legacy, not for bragging rights, but for money, power, and relevance. And in this sport, that's the Holy Trinity.
Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer. What do we have to question now? Do we question that is Errol Spence not a Hall of Famer? Or do we question Terence Crawford's resume? Because if he's not a Hall of Famer, then I thought you said the best fight the best. So do we question the resume, or do we just say Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer? Which one is it for you?
So while fans debate whether Spence still has it or not, don't be surprised if all this talk leads exactly where Crawford wants it to. One more night under the bright lights. And this time, don't expect it to be about undisputed titles. This one will be personal. What do you think though? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more updates.